Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of HU Flow here on the HU Enrichment page. As always, for your host, it is Steven. Yes, I know I'm solo this time around, but it's all good. Marilyn will be back for the next episode. But today, I have a little guest on that is very dear to my heart. She is the reason I ended up at this university that I graduated from a year ago. And her name, well, it's Linda Donatoni, as I know her, but now she's married. So Linda Cross. But I'm Tony. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey,
How you been?
good. How are you?
I'm doing sensational. So, on this podcast, we love to having numerous guests who do a lot of different things. And now for you, I know now that you're not doing what you did about 5 years ago when I was back in high school. So first and foremost, what are you currently doing now?
So I am now staying home with my two kids full time. I have a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old. I was at Mastery with you, I think probably around the time I had my 4-year-old, and stayed there until I had my now 18-month-old, and then decided to stay home with both of them until they're probably in elementary school or so.
Awesome. So, but essentially, you're just going to stay at home till they're in elementary school, and then maybe try something else after.
Yeah, kind of playing it by ear, to be honest with you. With COVID hitting, I feel like that kind of made things a little like it forced me to be home a little bit more, and then I really enjoyed it. And so maybe I say elementary school because they'll be out of the house a little bit more during the day, but who knows?
Right. So so just kind of start from the beginning. So first and foremost, where are you originally from?
Yeah, so I grew up in Westchester, Pennsylvania, which is about an hour outside of west of Philadelphia. Went to high school in Wilmington, Delaware, so about a half hour from my house, just over the border. So kind of always local to the area. And now I'm back in the Westchester. Well, we're technically in Downingtown, but right next to Westchester area.
Awesome. So like for you, how was like their high school life? Was it like in terms of high school, like did you know what you wanted to do for a living in high school, or was it something you kind of figured out as you were going?
I don't even remember thinking about what I wanted to do. I really don't even I knew that I was expected to go to college. And then besides from that, I really had no idea. I went into college as a biology major because I thought I was going to be a pediatrician. And then I failed chemistry within my first semester. So that was a reality check. But I don't remember in high school. I mean, I guess I must have. If I went in thinking I was pre-med, I must have had those thoughts. But I have no recollection of discussions about it or anything along those lines.
Okay. So that's kind of interesting because the thing that we get a lot from our hosts, especially our older hosts, is that we always ask them, "Hey, did you always see yourself being like a teacher, being someone in a field that you're in now?" And a lot of them like, "Well, I kind of saw one direction, but then I switched up at some point, either in college or maybe before I even got to college." So I like to always hear like, "Okay, what did you start out with?" Because it's not always how you finished it though, because that we just notice. So where did you go to college originally?
So I went to Gettysburg. I had a college advisor type. I forget the exact position name, but it was like a college advisor in high school. And I really didn't know that much about the college church. I was the oldest in my family. And she suggested it. She just said that a lot of kids from our high school had went there and liked it. And so I applied and got in and ended up going there. And like I said, I'm pretty sure I went in declared as a bio major and failed chemistry. And at that point, I don't remember if I stayed with bio, but at some point I changed over to psychology. Okay. So I don't remember if it was right from failing the chem class or if it was like a couple semesters later. But at some point I switched over to psychology because I realized I was not into the sciences.
All right. So then once you switched to psychology, how was that transition for you?
I loved it. I think I had just taken a Psych 101 class to just fulfill the gen ed class that I had to take and loved it. And then ended up declaring that as my major with a Spanish minor and took a lot more classes, obviously, became a TA and did a little bit of research with some of the professors on campus and really enjoyed it.
Okay. So you went on to eventually graduate with that degree in psychology.
Yeah.
I'm getting that right. So then after that, in terms of like job placement, where did you find yourself?
Yeah, so with psych, I got to my senior year, and with the psychology degree, you can kind of do anything, but you can kind of also do nothing. Like it's so broad that it's not like there's only one path. And a lot of times with a psych major, you really need to go to grad school to then be able to get a job. Because it's so broad. So I really wasn't sure what I was going to do. And I think that at some point in time, I became familiar my senior year with the Teach for America program, which certifies teachers to place or to teach in places of need where they need teachers. And I don't remember how I found out about it, if I had a friend who did it or applied. I'm not really sure, but it was a pretty intense application process. And I made it in about November of my senior year. And I, at the time, wasn't sure if I was going to do that or go on to grad school. But if I went on to grad school, I really didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know. I didn't want to spend all that money if I wasn't sure. So I got into TFA in about November, December of my senior year, and then knew at that point for the rest of the year that I would be part of that program. And I believe right when I was accepted, I got assigned to Philadelphia and teaching biology. So I knew by the end of my senior year, I had to pass the biopraxis exam, which I thought that there was no way I was going to pass, which is to allow me to teach in the state of Pennsylvania. And I ended up passing by 1 point. If I didn't pass, I wouldn't have made it. I wouldn't have been allowed to, I wouldn't be certified. So I was glad that I passed because I would not have had anything else lined up at that point. And so, yeah, that's how I got into teaching then from there.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. So, because that's pretty interesting. Because now I know you taught me college pretty much the 101, but
Yeah.
originally you started out teaching biology. So
Yes. I guess TFA had a need at the time and maybe still now for math and science teachers. So because I had taken those couple of science classes early on in college, even though I didn't do great in them, that's where I was assigned. So I was assigned to do high school sciences, so certified in biology, and then I could always teach one other class aside from bio. So it could be like bio and chemistry, bio and physical science, bio and environmental science. And I started there in North Philly for 2 years. And at the same time, I was going to Penn for my teaching certification, but knew within maybe a month or so of teaching that I didn't want to teach full time going forward. I wasn't super passionate about science to begin with, since I had obviously already failed chemistry in college. And then on top of that, it wasn't for me. Not that I didn't enjoy my TFA experience, but it just wasn't, the teaching aspect wasn't great for me. So at that point, I decided to go and get my master's in school counseling. So that's when I started that process.
Okay, so that's interesting because that makes sense. Because I'm like, okay, so how did you make that transition from the biology aspect to what you were doing when you were teaching me? So then, okay, so now that makes sense. So
Oh, sorry. I just found that over time, the teaching wasn't the enjoyable part for me. It was just the forming relationships and the talking before class, after class. But it wasn't actually the teaching component that I really enjoyed that much.
Right, because I could see that, like in the role that you taught me, I think that was more. It felt like you're more comfortable with that.
Yes, for sure.
Because definitely you were teaching us. Obviously, yeah, you should know this. It's about college. But also, it's a bonding aspect as well. Because
Yeah.
trips and stuff like that. And I wanted you to talk a little bit about how did you end up at Mastery?
Yeah. So I did my 2 years in TFA teaching science, and at the same time was getting my master's in school counseling. I then had a job between my TFA job and Mastery, where I was kind of doing in between. I was doing some extracurriculars at the school, a little bit of counseling, a school outreach, things like that, but not in the classroom teaching. And then once I got my master's, I started looking for more school counseling types of positions, and Mastery had one open for a college advisor. So I applied to that. And I was really interested in that. And then that's how I ended up at Mastery.
Awesome. So now to give you guys some context. So Donatoni taught basically college counsel. Well, I would say college counseling. Basically, she walked us through the college process. From admissions to pretty much making sure financially we were good, all the jazz. So how long did you do that for?
I was in mastery for, I think, four school years, 4 or 5 school years,
Yeah.
2014 until I think class of 2019 was my last graduating class.
Okay. Okay.
So maybe 5 school years.
Okay, cool. I mean, so like during that time you were at Mastery, what are like some things that like you took away from that experience?
For sure. So one would be the relationships, obviously still keeping in touch with a lot of the students, like you, and there, I mean, there's just a ton that I still talk to. So that for me would probably be the biggest one is the relationships, not only with the students, but also with the staff. I still talk to so many people who just became friends from working there. And then along with that is just, Mastery does a pretty good job, in my opinion, of the college process or post-secondary process, as they're getting away from just college. Obviously, there's still a lot of work to be done, but it's really something that all kids need, not just the kids at Mastery. And I don't think that a lot of the Philadelphia public schools have a position like that or a person like that walking through a lot of the kids through that process.
Right. And I can agree with you on that. I mean, for me, I think when I compared Mastery's process of teaching me, like, especially my senior year about the college process versus the other schools, I think we kind of did outdo them. And I don't think this is a challenge of outdoing each other. It's more of like we should all at least have the basic understanding of what we're doing. Because either going to college or maybe going to trade school, like something, you gotta do something with your life at the high school that's going to benefit you. So I think that's an issue that some schools do good, some schools do like if some can be better, but it's one of those, it's not really a race, it's really just like over time you can get to points. So my next question is just a more of an opinion question. So now, this was around COVID. So like COVID hit us hard, everyone in some different ways. But specifically for you, how has whole COVID affected you?
Um, I mean, not really only personally and not professionally, because pretty much when COVID hit, I had just had my daughter, so I was already home. So truly, we've been pretty fortunate in that in a lot of ways, it has not impacted us as poorly as a lot of people. Obviously, we were homebound for a long time. With little kids, which is just difficult to be in a house with little kids and nowhere to go. Socially now, I'm seeing that my now 4-year-old is having a little bit of a harder time now that we're like opening up into the world again, and she just isn't comfortable around people because for so long I was like, you got to keep your mask up, you got to keep your distance. Like, even at the playground, she'll be like, Mom, don't worry, I'm going to keep my distance from the other kids. And that's just a little sad to hear because no 4-year-old should have to say, I'm going to stay away from my other kids. Right. So, we've been lucky in the sense that I already wasn't working and was home. My husband didn't lose his job. He now works from home full time. He may go back to the office at some point, but for now he's home. So for us, it's really been more just personal, like social, emotional challenges than anything professional.
Because I think that the big one is like I feel no kids should be able to saying that. That's just like
it's just sad.
Yeah, like, that's the type of thing where it's like, as we're now opening up, hopefully that can change to a point where they can do what kids do and just enjoy themselves. But I do understand that's a big challenge. I think because a lot of our guests, when we ask these type of questions to them about COVID affecting them, we also ask my next question from the kind of hit on, we'll kind of go back to the teaching thing. During your first year of teaching, did you have any like doubt in yourself, like, okay, should I really be doing this? Should I not be doing this?
Gosh, every day. I did not feel well equipped to teach what I was teaching. So I every weekend would go and walk to a Barnes and Noble that was near my apartment in the city and sit there just for hours, probably 8 hours on Saturday and 8 hours on Sunday, just reading the textbook and trying to figure out what I was teaching for the next week, because I had to reteach myself what then I was supposed to teach those next couple of weeks. because like I said, there was such a need for these math and science teachers that they didn't really have people who were truly highly qualified. And if you could pass that exam that I passed with one extra point, you were considered highly qualified, but I didn't feel personally highly qualified. And so I was sitting there trying to reteach myself um, each week what I needed to then teach the following week to the kids.
Okay. Wow. Damn. Oh, okay. That is. Oh, I. Every weekend you did that?
Yeah, it was a
I.
lot for a while. I mean, definitely, I wasn't sitting there having to teach every little concept to myself, some things, but definitely some of the bigger things, and then trying to think of creative ways to teach it was definitely, and I didn't truly enjoy it either. So then I was just doubting the whole process.
Right. So, and this question is up to you to answer. How much of a toll did that take on you mentally, like doing that type of stuff?
It's definitely something I couldn't do now, but at the time I was young. I was like 21. I think I was 21 when I graduated college. So maybe 22 by the time that the school year started. And I had the energy and the time and to do it. So I mean, it was tiring, but it wasn't, I couldn't do it now by any means, but 10 years ago, it was just what I had to do.
Mhm. See, because the thing is, or because like hearing that makes me think about like my next question about like teachers in general. Do you like, and this again another opinion question? Do you feel like teachers are equipped enough in today's society to handle a lot of the things that they should handle in the school environment, like in terms of educating the students? Like, do you feel like there's still a need for teachers to be more upgraded? Because I've always seen, especially in Philadelphia, because I'll
Yeah.
focus on Philadelphia specifically. I've always seen stuff in the news about how like they're ill-equipped, how the
Yeah.
conditions are where they needed to be. Now I'm talking about pre-COVID, but also I can talk about post-COVID as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I can go
But
both
like
ways.
it's still the same thing right now. Like it's
Yeah.
just now we're adding a safety factor as well. So do you feel as though like teachers are still like are they equipped enough for this type of thing for in terms of education? Or are they still lacking in some areas?
I'm going to lean towards more that they need more support, that they're not as equipped. I think, of course, it depends. There's so many variables. It depends on the school district, the actual school, the teacher, how long they've been there. There's so many extra variables. But generally, I just, the teachers that have worked the last year have just been under so many challenges and just working so hard, either virtually or in person. Um, I come from a family of a lot of teachers. And like I said, I'm still friends with a lot of people that I used to work with. And I think that I just know how much they work outside of their, contracted 40 hours a week or whatever it may be, and feel like there's definitely places that more support could be given.
See, because we had some teachers like and that you're friends with, like Speak and
Yep.
Wright, Nelson, come on, and Benjamin himself, come on. They've kind of echoed that same sentiment, like, hey, we do stuff even outside, and especially the outside factor, the hours they're contracted to, because they'll
Yep.
spend weekends making plans for
Exactly.
something to do the next week, because teaching doesn't end that Friday or wherever your school day ends. It ends whenever the school year really ends, in my opinion,
Right.
because I feel
Right.
like that's where you guys are truly end at. And
Yeah.
now the other side of this is kind of from a student perspective, because the students don't really see the amount of work you can put in.
Of course.
So, like, does that get to you guys sometimes, like from a teaching perspective, like how students don't really see the work?
I mean, I think it just kind of comes with the job. For me, it was never about like being recognized for the amount of work outside. It was just general um, respect in the classroom. Like you were always a student that like maybe you didn't always know that I had spent Saturday doing the lesson plan, but like you were going to be polite about it and you were going to do what I asked and you were going to take in the material that I was trying to convey. And so as long as like that generally was happening, it never really for me took a toll on like, oh, they didn't know exactly how many hours I worked last night or last weekend.
Right. See, 'cause I always was curious about that because, as a student, I'll be in class, listen to lessons, and, obviously you're going to have those kids who are disrupted in class.
Yeah.
But, like, I always thought, like, hey, they put a lot of work into teaching me. So at least I should be respectful enough to listen and take the education in.
Right.
So it's always something that I always believed in. Maybe that's
Yeah.
probably why I was a quiet kid in college. Baby, I don't know. It's his own principle, ladies and
Yeah.
gentlemen. But so. Kind I have two more questions for you. My first one I'll ask you is, what advice would you give to someone who wants to get into the field that you did, specifically with the college advising and teaching role?
Um, so you asked for advice, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I would say, I mean, definitely go for it. It's a super rewarding job. Um, until you have more experience, I would probably try to look for a place like Mastery that already has a program pretty set out that they follow, because it can be a lot. And so to have other people, like other college advisors at other schools that are doing the same work as you, can be really helpful in terms of support when you have questions or concerns or anything along those lines. And aside from that, just it's really important work. So that's why I would just push anybody to try it.
For those who are considering college, right?
Yes.
Would you say that college is the end all be all, or should they always consider other options as well?
I don't know if they always need to consider other options. I mean, I don't think it's the end all be all. I think for some kids it's the right fit, for others it's not, and there's a ton of other options out there as well. So I think if you're somebody who truly has no idea what they want to do, then consider everything. But if you're, I just saw on Instagram a girl I went to high school with, just finished med school and got her PhD. Like, I don't know, she's like already finished med school and got it, I forget, but she's like very smart and has been in school since we've been in high school. And for her, I think back, like, she has been talking about this since I remember, like in middle and high school. So for her, really college was the best fit. And so I don't know, and she's doing exactly what she talked about doing back when she was like 13 or 14 years old. So for her, I don't know if it really made sense to like look at all the other options, because her path, like, she was so set in stone on her path. But if you're not that person, which is, I think, the majority of people, then I think that you definitely have to just kind of look at everything, and weigh the pros and cons of everything.
Right, right. Because I always come back to how the generations are changing,
Mm-hmm.
and how people in my age, in my 20s, they're like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'll figure it out as I go. And that's fine. I think a lot of people are just kind of winging it, like myself,
Yep.
especially because a year ago, a lot of us who graduated are was in that space, like, hey, COVID, what is this? And then it
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
And then now I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, let me take an actual month, stay in my apartment all day and just figure out what exactly should I do with my life.
Yes. Yes.
So that's kind of one of the many ways the class of 2020 and any future class from now on will do whatever they need to do. But awesome advice, awesome answers to questions. Well, first and foremost, thank you, Don Tony, for coming on the podcast. I appreciate you.
Of course.
Giving us. It was awesome. And also, for those who are still watching this video, thank you. We appreciate you. We'll be back again next week with another video where me and Marilyn will talk about some funny little college topics that you guys have requested from us. Until then, my name's Steven. This is our lovely guest, Little Bit Don Tony came on. This has been HU Flow video, and I will see you guys next.